Hello everyone, hope all of you are safe and healthy. Welcome to IAS Baba's Rapid Revision Series for Prelims 2021. This is session 39 and day 53. And the topics we have are once again the money market and the capital market. So these are the hot topics we are going to discuss. That is the small and medium industries, the classification thereof, and then the short sell and the short squeeze. Friends, here we will discuss the long squeeze as well, and then the micro ATM, then convertible and non-convertible debentures, then domestic systematically important insurers. In that context, we also discuss domestic systematically important banks as well, and then IPOs and FPOs and the qualified institutional placements, and then the merchant discount rates and the LIBOR and SONIA, the difference between them, and then circuit breaker, and then offshore rupee market. Coming to the first one, the small and medium industries. Friends, we know that in 2020, that is by June 2020, the MSME Act was amended and the new classification came up. So these are the new classification and this is the comparison. So here the old classification provided two sets of MSMEs, that is based on manufacturing industries and the service industries. So for manufacturing, for micro, the 20 lakh was the investment and 10 lakh was the investment for service industries. And for small industries, 5 crores was the initial investment, and for service industries it was 2 crores. Friends, why for service sector it is less? Because the service sector requires less minimum investment or capital. And then for medium it is 10 crores for manufacturing industries, and for service industries it is 5 crores. And now as per the 2020 classification, it is like this, that is the manufacturing and service enterprise have been clubbed. That is, for micro industries, the investment in plant and machinery should be not more than 1 crore and annual turnover should not be more than 5 crores. So both the turnover as well as the initial investment is taken into consideration. And for small industries, the plant and machinery investment should not be more than 10 crores and the annual turnover should not be more than 50 crores. And for medium industries, the investment is 50 crores and the turnover is 250 crores. So this is the latest update. But now why was it in news? Because the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, it has notified the Companies Accounting Standards Amendment Rules 2021, and these rules came into effect from 23rd June 2021. So as per this, some of the new classifications or new criteria are being added to that MSME classification. So now what are the new criteria? They are: the MSMEs are those whose equity or debt securities are not listed or are not in the process of listing on any stock exchange, whether in India or outside India. So if you are coming out of this MSME category, you will have to readily list your company in the stock exchange. So if you are not, then you are considered as MSMEs. Then, which is not a bank, financial institutions and insurance companies. So banks, financial institutions and insurance companies can no more become MSMEs anymore. And then whose turnover excluding their income does not exceed rupees 250 crores in the immediately preceding accounting year. So this 250 crores we have discussed in the earlier slide as well. So this turnover has been updated as per the latest classification of 2020. So this is not a new one, but it is an updation. Friends, mind you, this is the company's amendment rules and that is the MSME schedule. So as per the MSME schedule, the accounting standards are being updated, and then which does not have borrowing including the public deposits in excess of rupees 50 crores at any time during the immediately preceding accounting year. So along with the turnover, the borrowing limit are also being included, that is the 50 crore should not be exceeded. And then which is not a holding or subsidiary company of a company which is not a small and medium sized companies. So these SMEs, they cannot be the subsidiaries of a big company. So if they are a subsidiary of big company, they are equivalent to become a big company, not a small and medium enterprises. So these are the new updates. Then come to next, the short sell and the short squeeze. Friends, what is this? In finance, being short in an asset means investing in such a way that investor will profit if the value of asset falls. And then it is opposite of a more conventional long position, where the investor will profit if the value of asset rises. Now, what is a squeeze? It occurs when large number of traders are forced out of the market due to the price moving against them. So price is moving against their will and wish. So that is why they are going out of the market. And then triggering event of the squeeze can be an unexpected news or any other. And the name comes from the fact that many traders are trying to squeeze out or exit at the same time. Friends, we cannot understand like this. We will take one example. Friends, why was this in news? Because there was a squeeze, that is silver squeeze. The silver commodity derivative squeezed on February 2021. So now what is a squeeze? Friends, there are two types of investors in stock exchange, that is short investors and long investors. So now I am a common person. I want to buy a share. So after 1 month, I will sell this share for a hiked price. So I am buying a share for 100 rupees and I want to sell it for 150 rupees. So now I am searching for a rising stock market, or in other words, I want a rising stock market. So now I want the asset to rise in value. That is, I am a longer. You agree with me? And now coming to my stockbroker. So this is the stockbroker from whom I have purchased the shares. That is, this 100 rupees share I have given to him and he has purchased the share on behalf of me. So that share bond is with himself. Now, so within 1 week I am expecting the price to go from 100 to 150. But on Monday the price will be 100. But on Tuesday price will be 80 rupees. So now the price is falling down. And what this stockbroker, what he expects is on Tuesday the price may fall further to 60 rupees. So now what he does? He will sell these shares for 100 rupees on Monday and he will buy it on Tuesday. So what happens? Friends, I am least bothered about this share unless and until the 1 week period of mine will over or finish. So I am least bothered about the share till Saturday. So he will sell this and he will purchase this on Tuesday itself and he will earn 40 rupees profit from this. So now without any investment he is earning this 40 rupees. Yes friends, so now he is earning for the fall of the asset. So he is a shorter. And moreover friends, shorters cannot be normal people. They have to be experts because shorting is risky. Why it is risky friends? What if on Tuesday if the stock rises to 130 rupees? And moreover friends, no government and no nation will allow the stock to fall continuously. So everyone, governments, people, corporates, they will rush in and they will bring in one or the other norms in order to bring back the stock to the rising position. So he will be trading at utmost risk. So now if the price rises to 130, he will make a loss of 30 rupees. So now coming to this loss of 30 rupees, he was expecting the price to fall to 50 rupees on Wednesday, but it rose to 130 rupees because of government intervention. And later it rose to 140 rupees on Thursday. So now he started to fear and his financial status will be in the squeezing position. So he will be nervous. And moreover, being intolerant of these losses, he will go on and purchase the share for this 130 rupees. So this position, when the shorter is in squeezing position, is called the short squeeze. And then coming to long squeeze. Friends, long squeeze will not happen often. This is because everyone wants the market to be in the rising position. So I am a normal man and I want the market in the rising position. So when every day the market rises, I will be earning profit and I will be happy with that. But however, any untoward incident occurs, might be COVID-19 or any market will crash like the Lehman Brothers crash of 2008. So now the stocks will start falling down. And now we, the longers, will be under the squeezing position. So we don't know what to do. So now we start selling our shares so that we don't want to make further losses there. So now these longers who are ready to purchase the bonds, they are ready to sell them. So what do you mean? If the purchasers are going to sell, they are going out of the market. They want to exit the market. And these shorters who want to sell the shares, they are ready to purchase the shares. So when these sellers are purchasing, they are indirectly quitting out of the market once again. So when the market goes against their will, they are quitting out of the market. So this is a squeeze. So this is the meaning of squeezing position. So I have explained the long and short squeeze here. So more description. Short squeeze is a phenomenon where short seller in a stock who have placed their bets on the stock falls and they rush to hedge their position or buy the stock in the event of an adverse price movement in order to cover their losses. So the stock falls, but adversely it rises once again and now they start buying back. And this leads to sharp rise in demand for the share and huge rally in share prices. So now once the stock starts rising, then all these longers will be in the happier position and more purchase will occur and the price will hike again and again. So this will add to the problems of the shorters. So the squeeze is very intense for shorters, but for longers it will not be so intense because once the market falls, all the market players will come to their rescue. Then long squeeze. Long squeeze is a situation in which investors who hold long positions feel the need to sell into the falling market to cut their losses. And this pressure to sell usually leads to further decline in the market price. So this is all about the long squeeze and the short squeeze. We coming to the next. Micro ATMs. Friends, micro ATMs are being conceptualized as the financial inclusion instruments in the rural areas. And recently, Meghalaya also provided micro ATM to business correspondent agents. So in this context, micro ATMs will become important. So what is this all about? Micro ATMs are card swipe machines through which banks can remotely connect. So they are card swiping machines. We can see in the figure these micro ATMs, and this machine comes with a fingerprint scanner attached to it. So here is a fingerprint scanner as well. And how it is more convenient. The cost of deployment of a micro ATM is less than that of ordinary ATM, and micro ATM costs less than 20,000 rupees. And then micro ATM has connectivity through GSM, that is Global System for Mobile. Hence, it can travel from village to village and it is portable. Yes, the ATMs are not portable, whereas micro ATMs are portable. And how does this micro ATM work? So, bank will assign a correspondent who will sign up the customers in remote areas after verifying their identity or the fingerprint scanner where it is being provided. And fingerprint and the personal details may also be linked to the Aadhaar. So, he can also use Aadhaar card or any other ID proof to authenticate the identity. But how it actually works? Will it give money, friends? No. Micro ATMs will not give money. Money will not come out of this machine, friends. Rather, it will give only a receipt. So, if you show the receipt to that bank correspondent, he will give you money from his pocket. Or if you want to deposit money, again you swipe and generate a receipt and you show the receipt to him and you give the money to him and he will get deposited to your bank account. So this is how via this correspondent the micro ATMs work. So this is all about micro ATMs. Then come to next, convertible and non-convertible debentures. Friends, why was it in news? Because two non-banking financial companies, the Piramal Capital and Housing Finance Limited and the IIFL Home Finance, have come up with the NCDs, the non-convertible debentures. So in this context, debentures will become important. Friends, crudely speaking, debentures are the debt instruments. That is, if someone is going to set up a company, you are going to give some loan for him and he will provide interest to it. But now there are two types of debentures, that is convertible debentures and non-convertible debentures. So in case of non-convertible debentures, your debt remains to be a debt. So he will take the loan and he will pay interest monthly, and after 5 to 6 years of maturity, he will pay you the principal amount along with the interests. But now coming to convertible debentures. So here he will not pay you the principal amount, but he will convert this debt into the share and you will be access to the share market. So a simple thing, and the differentiation between the two are convertible debentures are those that can be converted into the shares of a company, but these non-convertible cannot be converted into shares. Then the rate of interest will be low in case of convertible debentures because he is already giving you the ownership or he is already giving you the shares. But however, in a non-convertible debentures, he is not giving any shares and that he will compensate with increased interest rate. So if you give one, you will get one likewise. Then coming to more effects on market condition. Due to bad market, you can convert these into shares. So due to bad markets, if the company is making losses, then you can convert them into shares and you can sell them in the secondary market. But these cannot be sold. You have to wait only till the maturity date comes. Then the status, holders of convertible debentures, they can become owners of the company as well. So that part of shares will make you the owner for that part. However, here only the creditor you can become, not the owner of any company. And then the risk factor, convertible debentures are less riskier, but however non-convertible debentures are more riskier. Why this is, friends? Because if the company is making loss, then you can convert those debentures into shares and you can readily sell them in the stock market. But here, in case of non-convertible debentures, if the company goes towards bankruptcy and if your loan is get defaulted, then you will be in a catch-20 situation. that is neither interest nor the principal amount. So that's why these are more riskier. So once again, here the interest rate will be more, but however they are riskier. You give one, you get one. Then value at the maturity. So here when you sell those shares in the stock market, you will be getting those price which is already present in the stock market. So you will not be getting any pre-agreed price. But however, in the non-convertible debentures, here you will be given the agreed price. That is the price which is agreed before giving the loan itself. So this is the difference between convertible and non-convertible debentures. Friends, there are several debentures, that is registered, non-registered, secured, unsecured debentures and all. For UPSC aspirants, it is not so important. Now come to next, domestic systematically important insurers and the DSIBs. Friends, why was it in news? Because the IRDAI has identified the LIC, General Insurance Corporation and the New India Assurance Co. as domestic systematically important insurers for 2020-21. So if they are identified for 2020-21, what it means? It is that this is not a fixed list. It will be updated on a yearly basis. So every year, different insurer companies can become DSIIs or the domestic systematically important insurers. Now friends, before going to the domestic systematically important insurers, we speak about domestic systematically important banks. So these are also important. That is, some banks become systematically important due to their size, cross-jurisdictional activity, complexity and lack of substitute and interconnection. So these are the criteria for this DSIBs. That is, their size should be huge, and then cross-jurisdictional activities. That is, their jurisdiction should be cross-border, cross-national, cross-state, etc. Then they should be having complex structures, and then lack of substitute. So without that particular bank, the whole banking sector should not be working smoothly. And then interconnection, they should be having interconnection with various sectors, like in the stock market, then in the derivative market, then in the debt market, maybe in the real estate markets, housing loan segments, many others. Then the banks whose assets exceed 2% of GDP are considered as DSIBs. So if you are contributing to 2% of GDP of the nation, in spite of you becoming one corporate entity, then automatically you are systematically important. Then should such a bank fail, there would be significant disruption in the overall economy. And then too big to fail tag also indicates that in case of distress, the government is expected to support these banks. Yes, if you are going in distress, then government will come to your support. Then all the banks under DSIB are required to maintain higher share of risk weighted assets as tier 1 equity. So this is not a fixed, friends, it is that an incremental 1 or 0.8% of tier 1 capital risk weighted asset ratio has to be maintained. That is, compared to previous year, your tier 1 capital should be 1% or 0.8% higher. So this is being set by RBI. Now coming to IRDAI's DSIIs or the domestic systematically important insurers. Friends, the definitions are same. The DSIIs refer to insurers of such size, market importance and domestic global interconnectedness whose distress or failure would cause a significant distortion in the domestic financial system. And then the regulator would identify the domestic systematically important insurers on the annual basis and disclose the names of these insurers for public information. And then the size of operations in terms of total revenue, including the premium that is underwritten and the value of assets under management. So what are your total revenues? Then what is the premium that people pay for your insurance? And what are your total assets which are managing? So how much total value of rupees have been invested in your insurance company? So all these are criteria. Then global activities across more than one jurisdiction. So your jurisdiction, your workplace should be in more than one nation. Then lack of substitutability of their products. So very similar to the banking segment. And then interconnectedness through counterparty exposure and macroeconomic exposure. So you should be exposed to stock market, derivative market, then real estate segments, then health insurance, vehicle insurance, sports insurance and many others. So this is the overall view of DSIBs and DSIIs. Then come to next, the IPOs and FPOs and the qualified institutional placement. So friends, a simple concept, but it was included because these are the basics of the capital and money market. Now this is in news because many times several industries and entities, they come up with IPOs and FPOs, and here the Bank of Maharashtra closes QIP and mops up rupees 404 crore from issue. So whenever you read the current affairs, friends, this is how you revise from the backward linkage. Now coming to IPOs and FPOs, initial public offering refers to an offer of securities made to the public for subscription by the company. So it is made to the public, not for selected few people. And follow-on public offer means offering of subscription to the public. Once again, this is also for the public, but they are follow-on. That is, after the initial, it is a follow-up offer. Now, this is the first public issue, and this is second, third, fourth, fifth likewise. And here, these are issued by the unlisted companies. So, when you are going for an initial public offer, at that point of time, you will not be listed in the stock exchange. But after IPO, you will get listed in the stock exchange and you will be a listed company. So, you will be a listed company automatically while you are going for a follow-on public offer. And then raising capital through public investment. Then here it is subsequent public investment. And then here the risk is high because if you invest in an IPO, there are no chances of whether this company will succeed or not. But here the risk is low because you already know that this company has come up with the IPO and it has been giving 3 to 4 follow-on public offers, and this company is growing day by day, and without risk I can invest in this company. So it is less riskier for the investors. So this is all about the IPO and FPO. Then coming to the qualified institutional placement. So in a QIP, a listed company can issue equities, shares, fully and partly convertible debentures or securities, that is convertible to equity shares. So anything can be issued via qualified institutional placements gateway. And apart from preferential allotment, this is the only other speedy method of private placement. So here it is one of the speedy methods and it is next to preferential allotment. Friends, preferential allotment is you are allotting your shares only for preferred candidates. Then it doesn't have to file a pre-issued document with a capital markets regulator, or in other words, it will be less cumbersome. Less documentation is required for qualified institutional placement. Then here a listed company can issue shares or convertible securities to a selected group of investors. So you need not go for a public issue. So these QIPs are restricted to selected few. Then, but unlike an IPO or an FPO, only institutions or qualified institutional buyers can participate in the QIP issuance. So not all, only qualified people can participate in this issuance. So this is all about IPO, FPO and QIP. Then coming to next, merchant discount rate. Friends, merchant discount rate was in news long back when Digital India arrived. But once again it is in news because the banks, fintech firms, they are seeking the return of MDR on RuPay and UPI transactions. Friends, we know that RuPay, UPI, PhonePe, Google Pay, they are being increasing day by day. And what these banks are asking is that let them pay some merchant discount rate to us. So currently you are not paying anything, so you should return back to that era wherein you are paying merchant discount rate. So in brief, what is a merchant discount rate? He will receive your payment via the POS, point of sale devices, or any other devices which is having PhonePe, Google Pay or other online payments. But however, this merchant, he is obliged to pay some amount to the bank, and even you are obliged to pay some fees. And the fees paid by you and the fees paid by the merchant all are clubbed to form the merchant discount rate. So a simple concept. Now merchant discount rate can have the following fees, that is the bank fees that are charged to the customers and vendors. So banks can charge any fees for demand drafts, for check clearance, for other transaction, IMPS, etc. So the same will be applicable for online transaction as well. Then transaction processing costs that payment aggregator will pay to the bank. So what the shopping mall person or what the merchant will pay to the bank. Then interchange fee. So what is interchange fee? So it is what you and the merchant will pay for Paytm, PhonePe, etc. or what you will pay for the card owners of the bank. So if you are swiping a SBI card, then you will have to pay some amount for SBI as a interchange fee. Then miscellaneous fees like cross-border fee. So if you are doing cross-border online payment, so this is the fee. Then zero limit fee. So if you transact some amount without any authentication, some penalty will be levied called the zero limit fees. So that also you will have to pay. Then gateway or the point of sale fees. So this is the fee paid for the system like the Aadhaar enabled systems or maybe that swiping machine. So those will be levying some fees for you. Then assessment fee. So overall on a monthly transaction per credit card or debit card, some charge will be laid on the merchants, that is called assessment fee per month. So these merchants, they will have to pay some assessment fee. So this will not be applicable for us, it will be applicable for the merchants. So these are some of the fees, and if any of them come in the prelims, you will remember and hit the right answer. Then come to next, LIBOR and SONIA. Friends, we know that due to Brexit, this LIBOR is fading away and we are going towards SONIA. Now, what is this LIBOR? So, LIBOR is determined by calculating the average rate at which a group of 20 leading banks can borrow money from each other in the wholesale London lending markets on unsecured terms in 5 currencies. So, here the 20 banks, in what interest they will borrow or lend, and this is an unsecured environment and it involves 5 currencies. So, friends, LIBOR is a average rate at which these top 20 banks will lend and borrow. So, these 20 banks, then unsecured terms and 5 currencies, these are the attributes of LIBOR. So, we will remember them and we will move further. Then the borrowing bank would then lend out this money to the customer at LIBOR plus margin. So, this margin will be over and above the LIBOR. Then LIBOR is set at the start of each agreed interest period. So, at the very time of you borrowing the loan, the interest rate will be fixed. So, these are some of the attributes of LIBOR. Friends, we will remember because we need it in SONIA. Then, why alternative? The widespread manipulation of LIBOR after global financial crisis. So, after 2008 crisis, LIBOR was edited continuously and it became too complex. Then, dwindling number of interbank borrowing transactions caused regulators to question the LIBOR's future. So, right now, the banks are directly borrowing from the share markets. They are not going for interbank borrowings. So, that is why the LIBOR has reduced in importance. And moreover, we need to move towards a risk-free rate. So, we know that this LIBOR is calculated during the unsecured terms. So, we should calculate more in the secured terms. So, we want a risk-free rate. And then the risk-free rate is a rate of return on an investment with zero risk of financial loss. So, this is what every banks need it. So, one drawback is that this unsecured terms. Then come to next, SONIA. Friends, here we will compare SONIA with the LIBOR and it is administered by the Bank of England and it is the chosen risk-free rate for sterling loans. Yes friends, here not all those 5 currencies are being involved. Why? Because the banks have stopped lending or borrowing in different currencies. So, now the banks are borrowing in the specific currencies. So, that is why the averaging of all the 5 currencies will not come into picture. So, now every nation they have their own RFR rates. So, US has SOFR, then Japan has Toner and many others. So, likewise England is coming up with SONIA. Then the SONIA rate is based on actual overnight interest rates in the active and liquid wholesale cash market. So, this is a actual overnight interest rate. So, we will remember this overnight for some time, and then it is also risk free as it does not incorporate any credit risk or liquid premium which is inherent in the calculation of LIBOR. And because LIBOR is predicted on the banks lending to each other over long term periods. Now, we will understand with an example friends. Friends, we know that this LIBOR is calculated on the risky environment and this is over a long term period, might be 2 days. So, now what happens? Now, I am a bank, I am going for borrowing and some banks, maybe SBI, it will offer me a loan in 10% interest rate. So, we know that this is a long term period. So, as per LIBOR, the current interest rate is 10%. But this is for 2 days, yes friends, and I will go ahead and make the deal. That is within 2 days, I will receive the loan at 10% of interest. But what happens? The very next day, the ICICI bank will approach me and it will promise of offering something at 8% of interest. But I have already made the deal and I am suffering huge loss here. So, this loss or profit of 10 to 8% is the liquidity premium, or this is the credit risk premium. So, this was the case that used to happen in LIBOR. But however, in SONIA, this is on a overnight basis or it is instantly calculated friends. That is, once you strike the deal, at that point of time what is the interest that will be given to you. So, the key difference is that the LIBOR is a forward looking. That is, once the deal is made, for the next 2 days, the interest will be same. That is, it is agreed at the start of an interest period. But SONIA is a backward looking. That is, it cannot be determined until the end of the agreed interest period. So, in SONIA what happens? So, I will come to the market and I will search for the loans and I will strike the deal. And once I receive the payment, the interest at that point of time when I receive the payment will be levied on me. It will not be levied on me once I make the deal, rather once I receive the payment. So, these are some of the advantages. That is, in the unrisk environment it is calculated, then it is overnight basis and it is at the end of the interest period, not at the beginning of the interest period. So, I hope you have understood. Then come to next, the circuit breaker. Friends, why was it in news? Because there were chances of markets crashing due to COVID-19 pandemic. So there was negative price for oil, then there was a flight of capital to a large extent. So that is why many stock experts, they were conceptualizing the circuit breakers. Friends, the index based market wide circuit breaker system was introduced by SEBI in 2001 itself. So what is index based market wide circuit breaker? That is one circuit breaker for one market. For Bombay Stock Exchange, one circuit breaker, then for National Stock Exchange, other circuit breaker. So it is based on different indexes. Then it is a mechanism used to prevent the markets from crashing due to panic selling. Yes, we know that this circuit breaker, it acts like a fuse. That is, if the market is going more volatile, then there will be a halt in the market so that the volatility will be reduced. Then the circuit breakers bring out a coordinated halt in the trade of equities and equity derivatives market. So it is a coordinated thing. It is not like SEBI will go and switch off the plug. It is like it will be coordinated from everybody and there will be a unison to close the market. Then the system is applied differently at 3 stages of index movement. That is, when the index falls for more than 10% before 1 pm. So by 1 pm itself, if there is more than 10% of fall, then it is halted for 45 minutes. And when the index falls for more than 15% on or after 2 pm, that is by the second half of the day, if the index falls by 15%, then trading is halted for the remainder of the day. So not 45 minutes, for whole remaining day it will be halted. And then when index falls for more than 20% at any time of the day, then the trading is halted for the remaining of the day. That is, even by 11 pm, if there is more than 20% fall, then from 11 pm itself to the end of the day, the market will be halted. So this is a brief account on circuit breaker. Then coming to next, offshore rupee market. Friends, why was it in news? Because the Reserve Bank of India allowed offshore units of Indian banks to participate in the offshore rupee derivative market to curtail volatility in the currency markets due to COVID-19 pandemic. So in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, the offshore units of Indian banks or the foreign branches of Indian banks are being given an opportunity to invest in the offshore rupee market. So now what is offshore rupee market, friends? For example, consider UK. So in UK there will be a rupee versus sterling market. So someone will be buying shares in rupees and someone will be having a contract via sterlings. So when there are differences in the exchange rate of rupee and sterling, when they vary, then the counterparties will be making profits or making loss respectively. So if the rupee hikes, then the person who has invested in rupees, he will make profit, or if rupee falls, then the counterparty will make the profits. So likewise it is going on. But however, as it is offshore, as it is in the UK, then SEBI or any other controllers will be having least control in this market. So now Government of India wants to take the control of this market. So how it is taking the control? It is allowing the foreign branches of our banks to invest in this offshore rupee market. So now what happens? These offshore branches will become the major investors and these major investors are in our control. So now if there is any volatility in that market, we can control these bank branches. Likewise, we can control the market indirectly. Now coming to the description, participants in the offshore rupee market can bet on the direction of Indian currency without undergoing stringent documentation and regulatory requirements prescribed by the Indian regulators. We discussed this, that is, these traders, they are not being controlled by Indian regulators like SEBI, RBI, etc. Then till now it has primarily been dominated by the offshore traders in the Indian foreign exchange market. So Indians or Indian banks were not taking active part in these markets. Then it is a step in getting the rupee derivative market back to the shores of India. Yes, we are going to take the control of it. And then rupee derivative is a huge market and it has to be taken up. And if that is taken up, then there will be a huge opportunity for Indians to invest in that market. And moreover, it will augment liquidity in the offshore rupee market. So as these major investors, they are infusing or they are investing in those markets, it will infuse liquidity as well. And then it will help RBI to intervene in the market to calm down the volatility. So RBI can control these branches and thereby they can calm down the volatility in that market. So this is all about the offshore rupee market and why RBI has allowed the offshore branches of Indian banks to invest in the offshore rupee market. Then come to the last part. Friends, many students have been asking how to manage the stress. So it is common that exam is nearing and you will be having stressed environment. But friends, make sure that stress is not a thing to be burdened. It is not a thing to be worried. It is a matter of pride, friends. So if you take the stress, it is an indication of you growing day by day. Only stress or tension can allow you grow. If you don't take the stress, you will never grow in your life at all. You will be in the same place where you are in even after 10 to 25 years. So lack of stress is an indication of your life getting plateaued, but increased stress is an indication of you growing. So take pride for growing day by day and have a pride for having a stressful life. Prime Minister says hard work can give you satisfaction, it cannot give you stress. So study happily, do it. All the very best. Good luck, friends.